And joining me in studio, former Israeli Justice Minister Yossi Beilin, former Foreign Policy Advisor to Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, retired Colonel Dr. Jacques Neriah, and I24 News Defence Correspondent Daniel Tsemach. Gentlemen, a pleasure. Jacques, first of all, take us back in history. Why did Israel decide to go into Lebanon in the first place?
Well, we were engulfed in Lebanon because of the civil war in Lebanon in 1976. In fact, we were called into the southern border of Lebanon, where you had Christian villages fighting against Muslims and against the PLO. So, in fact, the first time that we just helped them to organize and believing that they would support themselves. And unluckily for us, we were absorbed in the area, and step after step, we got more and more involved in the politics of Lebanon.
Right.
And finally, our goal in Lebanon was to destroy or to crush what they used to call the head of the snake, the PLO in Beirut.
Initially, what did Israel see as the benefit of getting involved there?
Well, you know, initially it was the idea of helping a minority which could, in fact, be an ally to Israel.
Maronites, the Christian Maronites.
Maronite Christians. But we misunderstood the whole situation in Lebanon. We misunderstood the whole context of Lebanon. And instead of fighting the PLO and leaving back to Israel, to our own borders, and we just got stuck in the Lebanese mud and for more than 24 years.
Would you call it a mistake for initially entering into Lebanon at that time with the idea?
It was a crazy mistake. A crazy mistake. I mean, you don't learn anything from history. It's, you know, we are here on this earth for quite long to understand that these attempts to have an ally in another country, like the Christians, who changed their alliances from being with the Syrians, against the Syrians. Because
the idea of the Christian Maronites was not, in fact, to make peace with Israel, make peace with the Jews, but they had almost a very different mission.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it is obvious. I mean, each group has its own interests. And what happened was that as a result of our using the attempt to assassinate our ambassador in London in 82, the government then of Begin and Sharon decided to begin actually the war in Lebanon, although the PLO was not involved in this attempt at all. So it was a pretext to enter Lebanon.
Is that how you saw it at the time? Because, of course, you're part of the government at the time.
I was not the part of the government, of course, then. I was the part of the opposition, and I wrote when we entered Lebanon, and I was recruited to reserves, but I wrote an article to Haaretz, so I'm documented.
Okay.
The bigger mistake was to believe that we could, on a security zone of barely 10 kilometers depth, to protect Israel. This was crazy. In fact, what we did is we created a monster. Instead of leaving Lebanon and having potential allies with the Shiites, we created HEZBOLLAH. In fact, and HEZBOLLAH became the military force that was opposing Israel and the resistance, the Lebanese resistance that finally came to what it is today.
Because like always, we didn't have an exit plan. Like today, America and Afghanistan, you name it. I mean, you have a plan to launch a war, you have no idea how to end it.
Right. So, Daniel, then let's have a look then at this monster, I suppose that's how you put it, Jacques, the HEZBOLLAH and the threat that it was then 19 years ago, and then how it exists today.
Well, as it exists today, you have, first of all, HEZBOLLAH being a member and an active player in the Lebanese government, a really wielding a great deal of strength and power in what is known to be a very sovereign state. And it's really just taken the characteristics of an army, of a full-blown, full-fledged army, and not the guerrilla militia that it was decades ago. And that is really the enemy that Israel is sort of coping with to this day, one that is suspected to have something around 100,000 missiles of different range and different capacities, but definitely a group that's far more menacing than it was before Israel pulled out of Lebanon, and not even to start with where they've been in the past few years.
At the start, in 1982, what was HEZBOLLAH? Nothing. I mean, the main militia in South Lebanon was Amal. And when the leader of Amal wanted to meet with the head of the military intelligence, the head of the military intelligence at the time, General Yoshua, said, who's that guy? We don't know him. I don't want to meet him. We didn't know what was going on in Lebanon. We didn't understand the Lebanese scene at all.
So now, would you say, how much is Israel's relationship with Lebanon about Iran, and how much is it to also do with the Palestinians?
Well, it is not connected to the Palestinians. What is happening is that, in a way, the Lebanese leadership is a hostage to HEZBOLLAH. The prime minister is a hostage to HEZBOLLAH. And another good news is that no Arab state supports HEZBOLLAH. The support to HEZBOLLAH is given by Iran only. You don't have any Arab state which is supporting this militia, neither their own government or their own prime minister. And even those in the government who support HEZBOLLAH usually is doing it as a lip service, not more than that. But still, it is, as Jacques is saying, a very important force in Lebanon. And the truth is that none of us know how to get rid of it without a confrontation, which might be very, very expensive, I would say, to both sides and to citizens.
Yeah, to take it further, I think that it's absolutely true that to say that HEZBOLLAH is maybe even in a way surrendering to Iran or subservient to Iran in this sense, seeing as it is a massive weapon supplier for HEZBOLLAH. And now when you look at when Israel and the Israeli military is looking at HEZBOLLAH and the intelligence establishment here, they're not only now looking at Lebanon, where they've obviously consolidated a great deal of power, but also even in Syria and looking into these vacuums and voids that have been left after the Syrian civil war, that maybe militias like Iranian-backed militias, maybe even HEZBOLLAH, that would be looking to exploit. And the Iran tie really goes also even to the southern border with Gaza, where there are many lessons to be learned from what happened in the north to what could happen potentially in the south.
Now, you want to add to that? Sorry, before
one remark. I mean, we are talking about HEZBOLLAH as if it were a Lebanese organization where it was founded by Iran. It's an Iranian organization that speaks Lebanese.
Right.
This is a big difference. So we are facing here not HEZBOLLAH as a Lebanese organization or militia. We are facing Iran in Lebanon.
Now, how effective then would you say has that UN resolution been in preventing these HEZBOLLAH threats that we're now seeing coming towards Israel? Because it seems, at least based on the way that things have unfolded with the tunnels that were being dug from Lebanon into Israel, that it was in fact Israel still looking out and discovering those threats coming towards the country.
Well, I think that the question must be a joke, because I mean everybody knew from day one that HEZBOLLAH would not respect this resolution, and that from day one we knew already that he was digging labyrinth and tunnels in South Lebanon. He was, I mean, every second house in Lebanon is an outpost of HEZBOLLAH with missiles inside in the basement and so on and so on. So I mean, HEZBOLLAH had never had the intention to respect this resolution, and Israel followed the events. The only thing is that during the years, instead of reacting immediately, as we are doing in Syria, for instance, we just let HEZBOLLAH grow and grow until the dimensions it got today.
Did you want to add to that?
Well, the UN resolution allowed the government of Olmert in 2006 to withdraw from Lebanon, which was an achievement by itself. But all of us knew, in opposition, in coalition, that it will not be really respected. I mean, the UNIFIL force was empowered, which is also good. So there are some positive aspects to this resolution, but to say that it really changed the situation and that HEZBOLLAH behaves as a result of it is, of course, totally wrong.
HEZBOLLAH, as we've been talking about, is, though, seen as a legitimate political force by some countries. We can just say Russia as one as an example. Saudi Arabia, though, today welcomed Britain's decision to outlaw the political wing of Lebanon's HEZBOLLAH, describing this decision as an important and constructive step. Is this a trend that could gain some momentum?
the Saudis are fighting day after day Hezbollah. You know, Hezbollah is not a name that it's a brand name. It's a brand name that has been given to militias in Syria. You have the Hezbollah in the Golan. It's an organization. Hezbollah in Iraq. Hezbollah in Bahrain. Hezbollah in Saudi Arabia. So I mean, Hezbollah is a sort of octopus. And it created by Iran, and this is when Saudi Arabia, calls this decision as a very positive one. It is based on the fact that you have inside Saudi Arabia every second week subversive actions meant and delivered by Hezbollah.
Well, they were very, very frustrated when Israel did not somehow win over Hezbollah. They encouraged Israel to fight Hezbollah, but we are not using the tools that they would like us to use in order to end
following
this.
What my friend has said, very quickly, I said, the question that will have to be asked in the future, historians will say, did Israel did well without not trying to act against Assad and bring the militias instead.